It's embarrassing how long I've been putting this off, but I really underestimated how long it would take me. Starting with the bags, I made a pattern, which I've linked below, and cut it out in both the black leather with seam allowance and in 5mm EVA foam. I machine stitched the sides and then hand stitched the bottom. And then turned it inside out once all the sides were stitched. The foam was placed inside to give the bags a more solid shape. To keep the shape and to prevent the other foam bits from moving around, I added another piece of foam to sit in the middle of them all. I also cut out the trim in the same black leather and attached it to the bag with contact adhesive. I added extra fabric so I could trim it down when needed. The trim was painted with a mix of black and white fabric paint, but normal acrylic paint would also work. I repeated for the other bags and attached a strap to the back and the flap to the front with a small stitch in each corner. I bought clear baubles and micro rice wire off of eBay. I spent ages sanding the inside of the baubles down to give them more of a muted shade, and probably killed my lungs in the process. You need 6 for her belt and an extra one if you want one to hold. Each ball was painted using a mix of turquoise and white acrylic paint. You can also use synthetic dye, but I chose the easier route. Once they're dry, you can use the micro wire wrapped in organza to create a glowing effect. However, I think the colour is more accurate without. For the smaller belt, I used 2 strips of EVA foam and attached them together. with 2 long strips of leather, both the same length as your belt, one width the same as the width of your belt and one slightly wider. Sew a long stitch down the centre of the leather. I used baking paper around them to ensure that they didn't catch on the sewing machine. The long belts are made by cutting one large strip of foam in half and sticking them to the shorter side of the leather and then the longer side. It's important to stick the foam to the bottom side of the leather first to ensure that the dip is on the right side. The shorter side's edges are trimmed. The wider leather is wrapped around the smaller side to cover the edges. This creates a belt with a dip in the middle. I mean, honestly, I did the belt wrong. I didn't realise that it was one long one and not 2 attached together, so basically for this part, just make one long belt, or just attach them together with belt screws after if you did what I did. This is where I fucked up and how I fixed it. The braided belts were made in a similar way to the other belts, just wrapped in jade green fabric. You need 1-inch strips of foam that are 1.5 times your waist measurement. I sewed the edges together around the foam and twisted them around so the seam was hidden. The loose ends were stuck to the hidden side of the strand. The strands were braided together and cut off where they overlapped when wrapped around your body. I created more strands using the same method as before to wrap around the centre part and create the illusion that it's all tied together using the belt itself. The top buckle is made out of a usual buckle, with the foam overlapping the front of it. The buckles were made using layers of 5mm EVA foam, stuck together using contact adhesive. The largest buckle was made using more foam, formed into a curved shape. They were all primed using plastidip and painted with acrylic paint. I used silver tinted paint on the top edge to give a metallic effect. Shadows were created using black and silver paint mixed together and applied to the creases. I'll come back to the top buckle in the next section. The smallest belt was attached to the buckle and sewed into place. The top plate was attached to the buckle with contact adhesive, after the belt itself had already been fed through. Each individual buckle was threaded onto the belt. An extra band of foam was wrapped around the back section of the belt and attached with a belt screw. Velcro was attached to the necessary areas of the belt using hot glue, but I would recommend stitching it because I had to redo it. The first Velcro attached the end of one side of the belt to the side of the belt, and the next to the other end and the largest buckle. The balls were attached to the belt using 1mm wire. The wire was threaded through the eye of the bauble and wrapped around to make sure it was secure and wouldn't move out of place. The finished balls were then wrapped around the belt several times, hidden by the bags. There's probably neater ways of attaching them, but this is just what worked for me. And that's the finished belt, even if taking it on and off is a ball ache.